Yeah, and that's our week of the
Here's 3 minutes.
How many cars do you put in there?
3.
How's the college student?
He's loving it.
Yeah.
How's yours?
Really enjoys
Okay.
tech.
Moving.
The work
That's a
is
task.
still ongoing.
Hopefully my last one.
Yeah.
I mean, even though we're now in November.
Everybody says that, and so it sounds so exciting.
Yeah, I would
Because
think
you
that.
usually want to do it. But once you get in it, I mean, it's just awful. I just don't have any other word to say. Especially when you're going down in size.
What you need to get rid of.
I'm glad more than
Yes.
that my money.
And
But
then
anyway.
how-
Yeah, this is.
What to do.
That's
Do you have the images up there?
No, actually,
Oh.
that's a good question. He didn't ask for it, I should not put them on the agenda, but have them on the phone, so I can put them up on the screen.
Can they see them then tonight?
Should be able to.
Okay.
You know, I don't like to study and what have you, long stories or anything.
Are you putting us at the end?
You know, but it is what it is, so.
Pretty sure I know.
But she.
I hope you did, because they're crucial. Did you bring them?
No, I didn't think I wanted to. I could dash some things there together if I need.
And the workload, you know, is getting to her. So, yeah, we'll go ahead. I'd like to call the November 7th meeting of the Historic Preservation Review Board to order. Mr. Boswell, if you would, please call roll.
Mr. Weaver?
Here.
Mr. Geisler?
Here.
Mr. Neese? Here. Mr. Webb? Absent. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting this evening. Mr. Webb we haven't heard from, so he may show up a little bit later, but in order not to hold anyone up, we'll proceed. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September meeting. We did not have an October meeting. There were no items on the agenda. Minutes were sent ahead of time. Does anyone have any comments? Any corrections? Hearing none,
Accept the minutes as written.
I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion for Mr. Weaver. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weaver?
Aye.
Mr. Geisler?
Aye.
Mr. Neese? Abstain, wasn't here. Mr. Johnson?
Aye. The first item that we have on the agenda, as far as a COA, is Abingdon United Methodist. And Jerry Sines is here on behalf. If you would, tell us a little bit about the proposal.
All right, we have a 4 foot by 6 foot carved high density polyurethane sign, whereas in the past we would use wood, redwood preferably. This is a lifetime material. It's CNC routed and then hand painted. And some of the key things that tie in on it, on top of the church, same with the coast caps. They're also a part of the church if you guys look up.
This sign is going in the location of the existing sign.
Correct.
The brick material is to match the existing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a concrete cap.
Yes.
That'd be precast or cast in place?
It would be, I think it precast.
And is it just, how wide is that brick area?
It's 8 feet.
8 feet?
Mm-hmm.
No,
No, that's the length.
what's shown is
Oh,
10
yeah.
feet length. How
Right,
wide?
right, 2 feet.
2 feet, so it's not a planter, it's just.
No.
Anyone have any questions, comments?
The lighting that's there now will remain.
Yes, it's external lit. Yeah, there's small lights that would shine on it.
And for those, I know Ms. White isn't very familiar with the regulations as well as Mr. Boyd. There are different regulations relative to sign size for churches, restaurants, versus the standard 2x2. Typically it's to be affixed, but it can be freestanding. Any comments, questions? The material you're using, it's a urethane.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall if we've utilized a urethane before. Anyone?
Yeah, T-Tilly, Peppermill, RC and C, right here across some festive celebrations. Pretty sure rain.
All right.
And the posts are steel?
Yes, sir.
The paint is as depicted.
Yes, sir.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
Make a motion to approve as submitted.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Yeah, I need to abstain, I'm a member of the Methodist Church, so.
Okay, well then I'll second.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Weaver. We'll keep Mr. Giesler in the good graces of the man upstairs. Roll call, please.
Mr. Weaver,
Aye.
Mr. Geezer, Sains, Mr. Neese,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Please note that the colors, the brick match, and it is to be as presented. So we've had some concerns in the past. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Mr. Bundy.
Yeah, what we're looking to do is at 190 East Main Street, the corner where Morgan's is. We're looking to add a carport in the back to cover the area. The parking is there now. And then the eventual plans is that the roof that would be above that, we want to, and hopefully the budget will allow that now, to make that into a green roof, so then we can go out and use that area also as sort of a lawn patio kind of area. So it sort of is multifaceted, and that's why it's a little deep right there in the middle, where it sort of makes a handrail then over the roof, be a parapet until it becomes a green roof.
Let me ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
One, you referenced in the application that the brick would match the existing stairwell.
Yeah,
You
I have some clarifications here too.
Okay.
I got two of these, but I did a little quick kind of rendering of what we had in mind to help clarify. But and I looked at using the white brick, and I think it looks better making it the red to match this red. There's red infill there and there and there. Actually, I can show you. And so what we would do is just match that as closely as possible.
You're talking about matching the red brick underneath your window sills?
Yes, on the stairwell. And the reason I clarify that is the other, the brick on the main building has the thin mortar joints. What's that called, Michael?
You're talking about it up front right here.
Anyway, yeah, here's a good picture of it. We would match this brick in the back stairwell. This red.
Which
In the, like the windows. Yeah. Otherwise, I feel like it's just too much white. I looked at coloring it that way. And
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
Is this your property line?
yeah, I also have site plan for you. Yes. There is, here's our property line there. The gray is the building addition.
So the older brick building here that has a bird parking sign on it is actually your building?
The old voucher building is not our building. That's the one that Drew Hawkins and some others just bought. But their property line, it comes over here in zigzags, and so this parking is all ours. This parking is where the railroad tie wall starts, and starts with the bird signs. That's the beginning of their property, and then these have our signs on it going all the way down through there.
So they have an easement crossing you, or?
We actually just did a swap for, we have a gas line that goes under their building, and they have, their stairs are actually on our property, so we gave them 5 feet of their stairwell for an easement to go underneath their building.
Okay. Are you planning on ever blocking this off right here on either side of the gate, or is that something maybe
This
in
would,
the future?
well, this would be blocked off here.
Okay.
So that, because what we want to do, it's really steep right now. It's about 12%, which is really too steep to park on.
Yeah.
6% is kind of the maximum, so it's almost twice as steep as you should park on. And so you can see this pretty well in the rendering, kind of, because it did this to the proper, you can see we would slope up and then level off at the door level. And that's why I've kind of shifted it over to the back side more, so that so we can keep that slope up to the door, and still be able to get in the door without having to have any stamps and steps, and still be able to roll stuff in. But to answer your question, you slope up, this would be level, and then the back wall, that would be sort of a small retaining wall, garage wall, so there would be dirt on that, and you would not be able to drive through anymore. And we're kind of thinking there's an alley right behind it, and it's actually quite dangerous if you walk out the door right here, and a lot of people will just truck up through there because they're used to it being vacant. You get killed pretty easily.
Cars going through there.
Because people will whip in and just go up here, park at the courthouse, or park, around that county building. So anyway, they still have complete access going back through here. This is all their property. The surveyor did not show any right-of-ways or easements going across that property. There is a sewer line that comes down. I talked to the town today about what we need to do with it, but their sewer line comes down across our property. It doesn't have an easement either, but what we'll do is pick it up, lower it, and put cleanouts on both sides. So it's really going to improve the system for them, because they don't have any cleanouts right now. So, and I did talk to, that's feeding the birds building, so I talked to them about that.
So in essence, they probably have a prescriptive easement. If it's been there for.
The birds would have a prescriptive easement, for sure.
Yeah.
And one thing, we thought we were gonna have to extend it, so I have 4 bays shown there. We extended over to open up that door in the window, but we figured out a way to not have to do that, to put a door in out of the stairwell. And so I'd rather have a little bit smaller, because it's a little bit too expensive. And so I've got a little revision here, and that rendering shows as well, just doing 3 bays, so it's a little bit shorter. It doesn't get into that slope part.
So what are you asking for?
The 3. So that's smaller.
Anything wrong with, that's what
question Mr. Neese asked is whether or not there was any provision within our guidance, our ordinance and guidelines and ordinance relative to preventing access, blocking things. And the only one that I'm aware of would be, you know, not doing any plantings or anything of this nature whenever you had, it was very close to another structure that may interfere with fire protection, you know, something of that nature. But that's outside our scope, so to speak. Under provision 27 of the guidelines, new commercial building additions, you know, additions at the rear of buildings are acceptable, should be compatible with the original building in terms of size, scale, proportions, roof pitch, and rhythm of openings. The archways do match the arches on the windows around. The brick you're proposing is already on the building. Would be able to tie in. Proportion is a smaller in scale. I guess the only question I would have would be, you know, being somewhat offset, you know, for the building. You know, but that is on your property. It is, for all practical purposes, that portion hidden from public view, other than Trooper's Alley.
Right. It actually hides it more from public view, but it really is just that slope. And if we try to line it up, and everything's going to be sloped, and I think it would look awkward. I would rather have it lined up, much rather, just the physical constraints of the existing site.
Any questions?
Well, I guess, I mean, I like the idea. I guess you want to, I mean, I think having a space that you can go out to outside with the restaurant's a great idea. I guess my biggest problem with it is I don't feel it is compatible with the building, the original building. I mean, I know it has an arch and there are arches in the windows, but the arches aren't the same scale. They have, to me, a much more modern appearance than the rest of the building. And that, just to me, as I'm at, in terms of compatibility, they don't go together very well. They don't reflect each other. And I mean, maybe that's just my personal impression, but that's kind of I mean, I think the guidelines ask us to, you know, see to it that additions are compatible with the original building, and they don't come across as compatible to me. I think square openings that reflect the rhythm and style of the original building would be much more preferable, but perhaps that's just my personal reaction. Maybe that's just me, but that's my biggest concern. I mean, I like the idea, I see what you're trying to do, and I think it's great. It's just I'm afraid that those sort of bigger, rounder openings just are so different from the original building. It seems like it's going to be really inconsistent. Were
you trying to tie it into the windows?
Yeah, where all the second floor windows do have the arches, and they are Romanesque style shaped arches. And then, of course, the opening that you would pull in, I think, is nicer as an arch, especially if you were going to build an opening like that in the 1914, you would have arches as opposed to square openings because you couldn't span over that with much of anything.
And did you put any, was there any, did you think of any way to maybe try to use both colors of the brick in the addition?
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, just
and see, that's what I was. I mean, if you actually were going to tie into the building, you'd use your earth tone here, and then the same thing. Go with your red underneath.
The problem with that is that you can never really match brick.
Yeah.
And you know, I did some work on the Bristol Surgery Center years ago, which was originally built with 2 tons of brick, 2 shades of brick, and then someone had done an addition where they tried to match. So we actually had 4 brick colors.
Yeah.
When we got involved, and it's just real difficult.
Yeah, there appears to be 3 on the building right now.
This addition to the building's occurred since I've been here, hasn't it?
It was 86. Yeah. JD.
I do like the idea of maybe
they already had
some of the
two
detailing.
And that's basically a stairwell in the back of that, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the went all the way to the top.
Yeah, but you can see they didn't match it very well either.
Yeah, and that's what I looked at.
And they actually have different, like I said, grout lines.
Oh, these two different types of brick here with
Yeah,
the original.
the original has the very thin grout lines that be almost impossible to replicate now, but yeah.
So I have one question, just I guess for the board, just trying to see how we all feel about it. Because 27A has additions should be compatible with the original building in terms of size, scale, proportions, roof pitch, and rhythm. Of course, you're talking about the rhythm of the openings. It's a little bit vague. Obviously, this is a little bit unique of a structure you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And of course, I haven't run across it being on the board for as long as I have. This is definitely different, but do we feel like the size, scale, proportions, and everything are kind of matching? I know it is in the back of the building, which is kind of out of the real periphery of the front and, you know, public view, I guess as it calls it, but does the board feel like it's to size, scale, and proportion with the rest of the building? That's the only thing I see.
As far as the scale,
I mean, like, you know, like this, and he matched up already, and obviously he doesn't want to call it at the top, but, you know, proportionately, does he feel like it's something that could have been originally added and make to look like it was always there? You know what I mean?
the reason for not extending it to the corner, Mr. Bundy, is, again, simply because of the slope.
This front corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the slope from, you know, that's about 12% right there.
But I mean, you're still gonna use that for parking anyway, right? So
But this
as far
front
as-
part?
Correct.
I mean, it's just, parking's such a demand there, I hate to take it away, but, you know, I don't have to use that as parking.
I guess back to Mr. Neese's, if this was actually extended over to the corner to try to tie in,
Right,
it isn't gonna look like an addition.
right,
Same thing that JD did
right,
here, instead of doing an offset or just a stairwell,
yeah,
boxing a stairwell in. And as far as the windows, it depends on what you're trying to flow, whether it's the side windows, because all the windows in the exterior are square.
right,
I understand the arch opening for access, and if you look at the cave house, the parking area behind the cave house is arched, if memory serves correct.
I think that matches his windows to me. I mean, I can see, I see that.
But your concern is the scale.
Well, you know, whenever you do an addition, a lot of times, you know, it's always good to try to fit it to the corner to where it looks like it was. I know your concern is that right there, obviously, and you got that to deal with.
Well, I mean, but you're actually gonna do some grading here, correct?
right, yeah.
Okay. If you just left this existing grade, you're not gonna touch this anyway.
Right, right.
So really what we're talking about is extending, coming over here to the corner, tying it into the corner. And then you're leaving that as is for an existing parking. And then you just extend your rooftop over to the corner of the building instead of having this more or less being offset.
Right.
I know that doesn't help you on your budget.
Well, and we'd have to keep, I mean, we'd almost have to keep the whole same size, because, you know, the idea is to get a few parking spaces. And so if we shifted over there and just shifted the whole thing over, then we'd only get one usable space that we level, possibly two. So, we could shift it over there, like you said, and just cover that part of the sloping.
Tying it into the existing corners of the building, I think you're gonna look more in conformity with the building instead of a true addition.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think if we were following, you know, ordinance, that would probably be the one thing we
Just,
get
just
smacked on.
It extended over to the point.
But he didn't have the budget for that.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things I think he's gonna take a look at, whether or not he shifts it, you know, 3 spaces over. It's just the 12% slope coming up here, but with the offset, that doesn't look, you know, and,
I kinda like it set back.
you like the offset?
Well, I'm gonna be a real jerk here. I don't like the design, but we're not here to critique design. I mean, we're here to critique whether it complies with their guidelines or not. And I don't mean to be offensive, Byron, please, but I spent all afternoon trying to find something that I liked about that Methodist church sign. You know, it's just like, kind of made me feel like somebody had a chance to design a sign and they wanted to put something in a sign that they always wanted to, you know, one of these and one of those. And so I didn't like that design, but it's not I'm not here to critique it as a board member. And here, I understand that we need to be compatible with the original design, but we can't make it can't be to scale. A 1-story parking garage can't be to scale with a 4-story building, so I don't see how that can happen. And we can't tell him how big to make it if his budget won't.
Well, I mean, but you got, construction should be done in such a way, this is under the guidelines.
Right.
Any removal of original walls or details from the rear of the original building is kept to a minimum. The addition is connected to the original building, and they've got actually through existing door or enlarged openings.
You know, what I thought earlier when I was looking at this is that I would like it a lot better if it weren't arched, if it did have rectangular openings as Byron suggested, but, you know, it's.
Well, I mean, what I'm getting at is our guidelines require that additions be compatible with the original building, and I don't think this addition is compatible with the original building. I mean, the brick color is the same, and there is an arched feature in the building, and then we have these big oversized arches in the addition, but I don't think that makes it compatible. This is a fairly ornate building with a lot of dental work and a lot going on, and a really plain addition with oversized arches that are not the same proportion, that don't really reflect the same style as the building, and there's really not much in terms of finish work to the top of it. It appears to be brick straight up and very plain and oversized arches that have a very modern feel, which is fine, but I don't think that's, you know, at all compatible with this building and reflects the features of this building. So it's not that I want to redesign the addition. I don't think it meets our guidelines that require it to be compatible with the existing.
But what I was saying is that I didn't articulate myself very well, but what I'm thinking is that it would be more compatible if it were just kind of a background addition, so it didn't try to draw attention to itself with the arches and so forth. If it could just be a utilitarian type addition, very plain.
I think I agree with that.
Sir, I would rather square the openings up and even do fancier brickwork than, you know, add another 300 or 600 square feet, because each square foot is just straight money on this. There's no savings. And it's even more complicated getting down that slope and getting closer to the front.
I guess this all is being subjective. I mean, the size and the offset don't bother me, but the compatibility with the building does.
I sort of like the offset better because it's removed from the street as much as it can be. So I would prefer that it not be in line with the Court Street facade of the building. In other words, I would prefer it in accordance with your site plan.
I think that helps. to me. I just wanted to see what everybody's personal thoughts were as it pertains to this, you know.
I think the offset still meets the guidelines, you know, with, I think some of the suggestions here. Are those doable?
Yeah, so I guess I'm a little confused about whether, I'm sort of hearing pretty simple utilitarian, I'm also hearing very ornate. Both those.
Well, I'm an architect, you ought to expect fellowship, right?
I'm an attorney, I'm not saying anything. So,
Well, I mean, I see the problem that we're throwing at you, but I mean, I think it can be very simple, but I think it just needs to, it doesn't have to look like it doesn't have to look like it was built the same time this building was built, but I think it just needs to be more compatible, and I don't think being simple is inconsistent with that. And it doesn't have to, you know, have dental work, and it doesn't have to have these columns and all, you know, all the features that you have in the original building, but and I think simple and utilitarian is better, but where it's lacking on, in my view, is it's just not compatible. It's just not, it's the size of the openings, the dimensions, the proportions, the design doesn't go with the other building.
Right.
And
when are you starting? When do you want to start construction on this?
Well, we have some
Spring
things
or-
to, no, as soon as we get everything in order. So, you know, we have things to get in order, but we would be ready to start, I guess, looks like we'll be coming back to the next meeting.
Well, and that was going to be a suggestion, is that if you could make some changes, communicate with staff, whenever those are done, we can have a special meeting.
Okay.
So, you know, that's doable with a couple dates.
Yeah.
So that, you know, we'll do everything we can as a committee to work with you. But it's just, as far as the color, what is the committee recommending as far as the actual brick color?
I think that really depends on his design.
But are you leaning more towards the tan in the elevator or the red?
That's that's the direction I am, because I think that flows with the building
Yeah.
better. And then you could do the same on the backside with the windows, what you got,
Right.
you know, is the same thing on the building.
Are you going to be adding a door to go to the exterior of the top, or is there a door already there for that?
We will be adding a door, cutting a door into the stairwell.
And then what are you gonna do about, I mean, is the brick gonna be high enough to where you won't need a railing, or will there be a railing there?
The brick will just be high enough to be a railing.
What about, well, you're gonna, I guess, redesign it, but I guess there's gonna, the bricks, is it just gonna be brick to the top and no sort of cap, or?
I mean, I would like to do a cap, and that's possible. It seems like it would be more cheaper to do just brick on the top. But a precast cap would look nice.
Well, but you could do a brick cap and flash it probably, so.
I feel like it would look
Yeah,
nice.
I think it all comes down to personal preferences here, and I would like for it to be as simple as possible with it. And we're not gonna agree on what we're gonna do here, because I think I'd like to see the dark red brick, because you're not gonna be able to match the stairwell, so let's be obviously different,
Yeah.
would be my point of view.
Take a look at it, if you would, and then submit your preference.
Okay.
And then we'll take
Yeah.
submit it to staff, and then we'll take a look back
Yeah.
at it.
What I'll do is shoot you guys an email, and maybe you can pass it around, get some feedback, and get it resolved.
Okay,
Okay, great. Thank you all.
thank you.
Yeah.
Those were the only two certificates, COAs, on the agenda for this evening. We do have a discussion item with Ms. White, Mr. and I didn't see Mr. White back there. I apologize, Dr. White.
He has arrived.
He has arrived.
But I will let my distaff side speak to me.
Well, I think it's gonna be all of us, but anyway, it's nice to be here on this other side. That was a good discussion too. That was a hard one. We have, I don't know if you know this, but we have purchased Marcella, 133 East Main. In fact, we closed this morning. And we're going to do very little, we need to do almost nothing to it. And having gone in it, and as a matter of fact, since we're last on the agenda and it's not raining, if you have time, we'd love for you to come down, for us to just walk on down there after we look at these pictures. We've asked Peyton to do a sketch of what we're talking about. We don't intend to do, we're going to, of course, paint in the spring. That'll be just pretty much freshening up the paint that's already there, looking mostly like Kyle Macien's across the street. And that's really the only thing that we're going to be doing. But what we're looking at there is that addition on the back of it. And those two big windows there are there's one room up there, and it's very low. It is under the eaves like this, and it is the master bedroom. And so it has presented us with this conundrum because it's too low to put our bed in there. Now, we could put just a frame and a low bed, but my husband is big, and he was going to bump his head when he stands up. It's really extremely low. That's why I'd like for you all to go down. And also, I wanted to preface this with the fact that we're trying to really bring you all into the conversation so you can help us maybe figure out what would be the best thing for us to do. So,
what is the profile right now? Forgive me, I
Well,
looked at it.
These photos are original, if you could.
right now, Peyton just took these the
I'd
other
look at
day.
those.
So what you see on that back is, let's see, is Jay, if you can turn that around. On the parking lot side is a dormer that was added there some years ago that lifts that low place up.
Yeah.
They put a bathroom there.
Yeah, I
So,
see it.
There it is. You see it right there?
I've got it on my phone, guys. I don't know why it won't let me rotate it.
So therefore, back from that is where the bedroom is so small that you can't get a bed in there. So what Peyton's been working with us, and Ramsey's been thinking about it, I'm either going to have to train in my husband or raise a roof. So what we're hoping to do
Don't ask my wife that.
is at least on the side that's on Julie Finney's side that you can't really see. There's one little spot from Plum Alley that you can glimpse that part. But that is a part that you can't see. And now we're looking at from the parking lot side, and what Peyton has drawn there is one option, which would be the best thing to do, which would be to take that same dormer that you see to the far left and duplicate it out there on the end, which would make that east end of the bedroom, that east side of the bedroom, high enough too. But if we could do the other side, which is not, if we only can do the other side, which is not seen from anywhere, that's the other side, that would give us, we could put the bed on that side and be all right. They thought, Peyton thought particularly, that it would actually look better if the whole thing matched. I mean, right now on the other side with the smaller place, it is just one little spot, and then it's the plain roof again.
So would your ideal be to add the 3 dormers to where it's on both sides?
It would, to make the whole thing match.
It would really be 2 dormers, because at least the way we've drawn it, the one on the west side is
Just one.
one continuous
Yeah.
dormer, but with the same
Yeah.
rhythm of windows as the
On this
2
side,
on the other
those
side.
dormers already exist.
One. That's why I'd like for you all to walk down there if you want to.
Well, that answers my only question. I didn't know if these were design options or if there was a reason for having 2 dormers on one side.
Michael, you can kind of see it on the photo, I don't know if you can get back to that.
The photo.
The one closest,
Photo.
the dormer closest on the house is there now. but-
Yeah, see, it's,
See the side, the white
Yeah.
right there.
And we would use the same, they would use that same roofing, you know, to keep that roofing there. So, I mean, that would solve the problem. It would make it perfection to do both of them, but at least being able to do the west side that's pretty much not seen.
I'm glad y'all came tonight because I just didn't like anything else that was presented.
Well, and I appreciate, I hope that means you like it.
Well, I do. It's very-
I don't
thanks for
know,
that.
I mean, we're not ready to do it, but it's just such an important little thing. And yet, I call this one of our best properties, and this is one of our grade 1 properties, and I definitely wanted to be taken care of, right. I feel like it's right to do this.
On the east side where it's not gonna be continuous, the dormer, it will match exactly the dormer that's there, and we'll leave a space
Okay.
in the middle and then match it, but on the west side, it would be, what did you show it, like three windows?
No, it's 2 and 2, but
It was built in
continuous, one door.
1845.
Yeah,
And I
so it's
don't
it's
know
one,
when
but it's
this
4
addition
windows in the
was
wall.
built.
Right.
The Worrells bought it in the early 80s, but the addition was there, if I recall. And so, I mean, we see the window on the main house? That is one bedroom. On the other side is another bedroom. So there are 2 other bedrooms. And I explored, I said, well, maybe we'll just have to go sleep right on Main Street. But the thing is, they're so small that you can only have a double bed in there. You can't even have twin beds. It's too small for twin beds. So, I mean,
And you only have a double bed and you can't put 2 tables on.
you know,
You
it's
can only
just,
put one
it's
table.
just right there. So it might cause some collisions.
Especially if you stand up.
Right. So
I just-
therefore, that seemed to not be an option. So we're back to this is going to be beautiful, really, and it overlooks the garden. And my last point is that, you know, I hope we're not going to leave this house until the very end. But when we do, when someone else buys it, a master bedroom needs to be there so that, you know, that adults can sleep somewhere other than a double bed in the front. So that's our story.
And it really is that, it is an A-frame, and it's about like that, and we don't even know, moving tomorrow, we have a 4-poster bed. Whether we're gonna have to put it in front of the windows, the end windows, and I'm not sure it's even gonna fit the A-frame.
And that's just going to
There.
take it, the only light in the room. You know, in addition to all this, it's very dark in there, so.
Good. One thing I would just add to that discussion is, if you look at it in person, that whole rear was sort of an accretion of construction, because you can see where walls started and stopped.
Oh, right, you can.
So the history of this house is obviously one, like so many in the historic district, of, you know, add a little, add a little, add a little, and which is why in a situation like this, I don't have any problem with adding yet again.
Well, it may even balance. I think that was one of your all's points earlier, balancing the house out a little bit, but.
And it doesn't touch the original 1845 piece of it. And as Peyton said, you can see, if you all walk down there, you can see it. You can see those little extra things that have been attached. Those little stairs, the little curving stairs, I call them the fairy stairs because I think the grandchildren are going to love them, are up. I think the original entrance into the upstairs was outside rather than inside. And I think when you all go in the house, you'll agree with me on that. And those stairs went up to it, and then there were 2 steps that step up into the bedroom, to the center hall for the bedroom. And so I think that was the first addition, and then I think they added another one. You know, as Peyton said, you can see from the brick. It's really pretty.
We do want permission though, Bets, is to paint the shed.
Oh, that's right. The shed in the back there, that's the other reason we'd like for you to walk down there. The Worrells did do this in the 80s, in the early 80s. They added this shed on Plum Alley. And instead of painting it white to match everything, they stained it, you know, walnut stain. Now, Ramsey and Quinn are working on the boxwood garden. Is really pretty too, but it's going to get to be even prettier. They're going to upgrade it somewhat next spring, and probably we probably will come here and ask for a pergola to be back there. But He also wants the back of it to be anchored by something that better matches the house as well as Julie Finney's building that's, right beside us right there, so that.
We will, white, dark green trim to match the dark green trim on the house, and a gray door, which matches the gray door on the front of the house, so it would all.
Yeah, is there a picture?
Of the front?
No, of the shed. We didn't.
No, we don't. Would you all like to walk down?
Could.
Mhm.
6 o'clock. I'd love to.
Good.
Okay,
We'd love for you to.
let's adjourn first.
Okay.
Right, so, that concludes the discussion. Any other business matters or announcements?
Yeah, one thing, it's our 4-year evaluation through CLG, through DHR. I've already filled out the evaluation form, but Aubrey Von Linden will be coming down either in December or January to attend a meeting. So just keep that in mind.
If you would, distribute today, as soon as you have it. And one question I have, Dr. Johnson's door.
Yes.
Had
Had a conversation with Dr. Johnston. Duffy came back in, gave him the CL for 444. And he said that Barry's would take care of it and they would be replaced.
Okay.
Let me, did we specify that that was to be a wooden door?
We did.
Yes.
Okay, because what's there now is metal.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was one of the things Jason, I think you brought it up, and Jason followed up on it.
Yeah, went straight down there and talked to Dr. Johnson, and Mr. Carmack came back the next day.
Correct, because the minutes were clear.
Yes, sir.
So, that concludes the business matters. If no one has any other matters, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
I have a second.
Mr. Weaver?
All right.
Mr. Geisler?
Aye.
Mr. Neese?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.